Hi, everyone. It feels pretty strange to be back on the stage after almost 2 years of living in some strange conditions, working at home, dealing with, I have, for instance, a turtle. I have a Yorkshire Terrier that for some reason wants to eat my laptop. Obviously struggling with speaking remotely. This is my first speaking engagement face-to-face, and I just love the interactions. I don't love the lights that are blinding me, but I see some faces here, and I hope the conversation will be really insightful, and also the topic is really challenging. I can see now that the title is really, really too long, right? So how to adapt in the new hybrid work environment reality. I'm glad to see that also this conference is broadcasted online in a hybrid fashion. Yesterday and the day before, we saw some sessions online. We engaged also face-to-face here at the corporate location. And it's really, really new, uncharted territories. Like the presentation before, we are testing this new hybrid environment reality. I want to start with a small story. It's a personal one. 5-7 years ago, I was an aspiring manager. I was traveling quite a lot, doing a lot of business trips in Romania and abroad. I was leading a large group of software engineers, and I was also in love with my then-to-be future wife. And we had a really heart-to-heart conversation one night. She said to me, "Alex, I love you so much, but your job is getting in the way. When we're going to settle down and start a family, right? I'm afraid that your children are going to see you on Zoom or FaceTime." That's a shameless plug for Apple. So we need to do something about it, right? So that was a really turning point for me 5 or 7 years ago when I started to look at life in terms of outcomes, family, and less about work. Don't get me wrong, I'm still an expert in my field, but it's really important to decide what's valuable to us. There's this really insightful book that I recommend you give it a read, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey, if I'm not mistaken. There's a chapter there that says you need to start a journey with the end in mind. So my wife said, "Alex, what would you like for your children to say at your funeral?" And I was like, "Okay, do you want them to say that you are a great father or an absent father?" So let's put a pin in this really strange story, but it will make sense, and I promise you the conversation and the presentation will be uptight from here on up. Like I said, I am an expert in my field, but I don't consider myself to be an expert in all fields, but I have been blessed with a really wonderful and supportive family, and I'm part of a top-tier IT company that has allowed me to observe, lead, manage, inspire hundreds of software engineers. And basically, this is how this presentation came to be, right? We are all testing the new hybrid reality, and we need to see what lessons learned, what insights we can use to get our engineers to feel motivated and get our colleagues to be appreciated, and also, at the end of the year, have high achievements. I'm going to stay here for the rest of the presentation because I want to look good in photos. Either that or I haven't rehearsed the presentation so well. Who's going to tell, right? So the first topic I want to get into is motivation. For me personally, if I want to go to the office, it's a 1-hour commute, right? Back and forth. So it takes quite a long to get to the office. For our colleagues, for your colleagues, we will need to identify what are the types of activities that will motivate them to work from home, and what types of activities will motivate them to go to the office, go through the commute or the subway, and start the day with a bit of stress. Obviously, if you are doing an IT job and you are writing code, maybe you have the right setup at home, right? You have a quiet location, a quiet office, you have the real estate where you can set up monitors and so on. But what if you have a personal context like me? I have a turtle, I have a 2-year-old son, and I also have a crazy dog that wants to bark and scream at everything, right? In this situation, maybe I should go to the office, but I don't feel motivated. Right? It's the commute time, and it's complicated to understand how people work. This has come to be known as the hybrid paradox. over 70% of engineers worldwide that are working in the IT industry want to work and have the optionality and flexibility to work remotely. But also over 66% of engineers from the same study want to have more in-person human connection, right? So something doesn't make sense, right? Our job as leaders and managers is going to be really challenging in the coming months and years. We will need to develop by one-to-one conversations, by meeting and socializing with our colleagues. We will need to make a human connection, create emotion, and be able to create a relationship of trust so that the engineer feels empowered to decide, to have the flexibility and the optionality, not quite the same thing, flexibility and optionality, when and where to work remotely. Another point that is really interesting about motivation is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Some employees want focus time, some employees want to be engaged in meetings, and this is the reason why they go to the office. For others, the same reasons are the exact reason that they want to stay at home. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution for this. The second main point, besides motivation, is hybrid inclusion. This is a complicated term, but it's really simple. It means creating a clear guideline in which remote engineers and the engineers that are going to the office feel part of the culture and don't feel left out, right? If you're having, let's say, in the agile ceremonies, a sprint retrospective, right? And you have most of your team remotely, and one engineer that had some hardware issues and had to go to the office, right? How will he feel? Will he be engaged in the conversation? Will he be on mute? Does the meeting room have sufficient hardware and all the IT equipment to be able to facilitate insightful conversation? For colleagues that are remote only, how will they be able to engage in a creative discussion, a brainstorming discussion? These are all the questions that we need to address ourselves and see how we can find answers. What we try to do at Cognizant Softvision, we try to give them the work from home option first, and work from office as a second option. They have total ownership to decide when they want to come to the office, when, and obviously from which location. It's also important to look at the reason why leaders or managers lead by example. When we have different types of meetings, let's say all hands or town halls, we try to have our leadership team, maybe the CEO or different managers, to work from home. Don't use a background screen so that the company can see the living room, the crazy bookshelf with all the books. And this is a simple way in which we can encourage and tell our engineers, hey, it's okay. If our CEO is doing it, there's no pressure in us to come to the office. Also, what we try to do in our company, we don't have a specific set of number of days in which the colleagues need to be present in the office. We have a really important central tool that we are using to book the seats in the office, and the engineers decide when and where to come to the office. One other point that needs to be made regarding hybrid inclusion, we can reinforce employee bonds by creating all types of social events. If we have some important company milestones, 10 years of Cognizant Softvision in Iași, 5 years of Mass Mutual in X location, right? We can definitely try to create virtual events, socializing events, parties for also remote engineers and also face-to-face engineers. This is one simple way in which we can create engagement and celebrate different types of activities. The third topic that is really going to be challenging and it's going to cost the most is that we need to rethink the office space. Managers and leaders need to make the office worth the commute. The office is no longer a place where someone just comes and works and drinks some coffee. It's going to be an office where we need to have experiences, where I need to be motivated to come to the office, to go through the commute, to share moments with colleagues, and from time to time, maybe do some real work, right? So this is going to be a challenging topic because we will need to rethink the whole office concept. One way we can do about it is by creating team agreements, right? With our teams, we can discuss, okay, what types of activities are more appropriate to working from office? When do we feel we should stay at home, right? Let's have a team agreement, not necessarily make everyone sign it, right? But just have a team agreement in which, okay, if we have backlog grooming or sprint retrospective, or we need to create some R&D proof of concept, okay, let's huddle in a creative meeting room, and we can all share the commute time together, and it will be a more insightful use of time instead of each and every one of us being remotely in our pajamas and working from home. I read earlier this year a really engaging article from The Atlantic. Mitchell Moss, a professor of urban policy and planning, had a really insightful idea. In order to take advantage of the office, we need to create vertical yachts. We all know how a luxury yacht looks like, right? With different floors that have fancy gyms, coffee places, restaurants, big dining and dancing rooms. This is the kind of example that we should take into consideration when we consider rethinking our offices. They should give an experience. They should have spaces in which all of the engineers can have either a quiet location to do some deep work or a creative space where they can huddle together and exchange ideas. Last night I was at the office with my 2-year-old son, and we had a kids party. And I met some of my colleagues in my group, and they were like, hey, this is Alex, he's our manager. And it was a bit of difference in how we work and interact in a day-to-day environment and how we interact informally, right? I was a bit nervous. I was kind of clumsy while trying to eat a slice of pizza and also protecting my kid from bumping in all kinds of things. So it created a different type of experience with our colleagues, right? I was not just the big manager. I was also a human, a peer that had all the same issues in that situation, handling children. The fourth lesson that I think it's really important to share, and we have a lot of challenges in our organization, is time spent in communication channels. At the beginning of the pandemic situation, we saw a high spike in productivity, and we were obviously glad. So we were always happy when output is better. But as time passed on, we understood that it was a mask for exhausted workforce and possibly burnout situations. The digital intensity of our days has increased. The number of meetings has increased. Our attention span online and also at the office is under attack. The average meeting time that we observe in our internal tools has grown with over 15% in average. We've seen a 66% increase in the number of people working on collaborative documents, which is also really challenging. What used to happen in meeting rooms before the pandemic now happens online in Google Docs or Microsoft tools. So this is also creating a lot of pressure on engineers. Most of the communication seems to be unstructured and unplanned. Over 62% of our calls are happening ad hoc, unplanned, and this creates a pressure for the engineers to always be on. What we are trying to do is obviously filter meetings. Can this meeting be an email or a chat communication, so that we don't create any more pressure on our engineers? One thing that we also look into really much is the lack of energy and focus due to back-to-back meetings. We try to be insightful and protect some time. Our slots are usually 25 minutes for a half-an-hour call or 45 minutes for a 1-hour call. And obviously, there are different types of useful tricks that we can do. Use the optional and required items for participants. And also, we can avoid scheduling large meetings with a number of high list of participants, because in online, they won't be so effective. The last point I want to make is that we need to understand that we are currently in uncharted territories. No one has really worked out the hybrid work reality. Obviously, maybe in the US, the type of work was remote first and office second. But today, I think we have a challenge to motivate our engineers to understand why they should work from the office. They don't need to come to the office for all types of activities. We shouldn't put a pressure on our engineers to come to the office. We should first understand them, feel their pain, and create a relationship of trust. So this brings me to the topic of change management, right? It's a big change. In the last couple of years, our habits have changed quite a lot. My car mileage has gone down since the COVID-19 situation. Obviously not today, because I drove here with the car. So we need to take into account how we view our world. There's a really cool quote I like to give. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. It's from Anais Nin. So basically, we need to be really careful when communicating to colleagues. Hey, we should have a conversation tomorrow, and let's make it at the office. That kind of phrase creates a pressure on our colleagues. Another way to go about it, hey, tomorrow I'm going to be at the office. If you would like, if you have the time, if you would like to get a coffee and have some meaningful conversations, you know where you can find me. Right? There's no pressure, there is optionality and flexibility. And also, you can add some extra spice, and maybe at dinner, we can discuss some informal topics and have some get-togethers. Another topic regarding change management is VUCA. Probably you are all accustomed to this acronym. Basically, it's from the military, but in recent years, it's also used in leadership and management. It comes from volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and change. I'm also dealing here with a lot of volatility. I'm looking at this screen, at the laptop, a lot of uncertainty. I see people looking at me. I see people looking at their phones. I don't know, is it going okay? Is my voice weird? And obviously, a lot of complexity. Right? After this talk, I'm going to go back to the booth, answer some questions. Then I have a meeting to hire an engineer. Then I have to keep an engineer from leaving our company. So it's a lot of complexity. And ambiguity, obviously, it's part of our lives. For each and every one of these letters, there is an antidote. For volatility, it's vision. Okay, let's not forget what we're doing. What we are doing. Simon Sinek has the great book, Start With Why. So why I'm here on the stage and sweating is because I like sharing knowledge and giving lessons learned that have helped us in our organization, so that maybe you can apply them in your organization. For uncertainty, it's understanding. Okay, it's a different topic. We need to understand what is happening. For complexity, obviously, we have clarity, and for ambiguity, we have agility. We don't know what cloud provider we're going to use tomorrow, okay, but let's move quickly through the topics. I don't know in the next week where I'll be working from. So here I have a question for you. On Monday, will you be working from the office? Raise your hand who is going to work from the office on Monday. Well, I see some people who are going to do overtime, but good call on the ones that were paying attention. So Monday, guys, just a public safety announcement. It's a free day, hopefully for everyone. So for everyone who raised their hands, just make sure you're going to bill double hours, right, on Monday. In conclusion, what I would like to make as the main point. During these last couple of years at Cognizant Softvision, but also in my personal life, I understood that it's really important to know how to motivate the people, the engineers, how to listen to them really carefully, how to make the office place not just working place, but a cultural experience. It's really important to understand how change management works. We need to analyze the volume of communication that is happening and to see if it's creating some pressure on our engineers. One really important statistic that shocked me was that with all the communication that is happening, users are answering within 5 minutes. Right? So engineers that are in meetings, that are writing code, if they receive an email, if they receive a chat notification, within 5 minutes, they context switch, they give a reply, and they context switch again. This is almost halving the workday. You're doing half deep work and half shallow work because you're always there, always on. What I try to do is obviously put the phone on different busy setups and also the communication channels. I'm scared actually to look at the phone after this call because I think I have all kinds of issues and emergencies. I know there is not a lot of time that we can talk about this topic, but if you have any questions or if you would like to take this topic further, I'll be for the remainder of the day at Cognizant Softvision's booth. So if you have any questions right now, I'd gladly try to give an answer. If not, we can take it offline. Thank you so much.
So let's see if we have questions from the room. Until the room prepares, I would like to ask you a question. So whenever you have hybrid meetings, to me it seems really complicated to see the people at home engaged in the conversation. I see their effort to follow the conversation. They are missing the jokes which are happening in the office. So I'm curious if you have found maybe some antidotes or if you have tried some things.
We have tried some things. We are all humans. It's really complicated to find a perfect solution. What we tried to do was not enforce always on cameras, right? When you're at home. If you are having a bad day, it's okay. Don't share the camera. If you are having, I don't know, some work done in the house, don't share the webcam. What we try to do is create meeting rooms in the office that have high standard video and audio equipment, and also give the engineers at home top quality hardware. So if they want to engage in the conversation, they have the tools and the means to do so. Also, what we try to do in meetings, we don't try to nominate people. Right? Hey Alina, what are your topics on this one? I see your camera is offline. That creates kind of a pressure. Maybe I'm answering the door for a courier. Maybe I'm taking care of my kid. But it's really important after the call to say, hey Alina, I saw you are with the camera off. If you have any questions or insightful things you would like to add, here's the document. Feel free to write to me so that they feel part of the conversation. And we also understand that at home there are different distractions that happen. So I think we don't have a silver bullet, but we have different things that work for different people.
Okay. Let's see in the room if we have
One
a question there. It's over there near the camera.
Near the camera. The other camera.
Hi, really great topic. Really enjoyed it. It's one of the topics we have in the office lately with the managers. The issue we realize we're having is when doing the office days, we're actually less productive. It's something that you noticed as well with your team, with the management team.
Yes.
And how do you compare and solve this issue?
This is not a problem to solve, right? So first of all, we need to understand that in the last couple of years, in the pandemic years, our productivity spiked. That's not normal, right? At home, we decide when we do the work, when we're best productive. I get up at 6 a.m., right? I take care of the kid, I walk the dog, and at 7, I'm up and running. At the office, we are less productive because we're human and we are interacting. That's totally fine. We at Cognizant Softvision don't intend on changing anything. When I'm at the office, I try to clear my schedule so that if any colleague comes up, hey Alex, do you have a free moment? I'd like to chat something. I can do that. It's less productive, but that is the former reality of things. We were getting at a coffee place, we were having lunches that spilled over into working hours. It's normal. So you shouldn't feel a pressure to have the same productivity that you're having at home while you're at the office, right? In this morning, I drove here by car, and some car cut me off. I was already nervous when I got here, right? So I don't know if I did the best job presenting here, because I have some bad thoughts about that driver. It's okay. Right, so that's my answer, basically. Don't try to push productivity. Just be mindful of reserving deep work time. So if you're going to the office and you know you have a release or a client demo, just block some schedule and go in the meeting room in a quiet place and do your work. That's the answer, basically. Cool, thank you. One question near the other camera.
Hi, Livio is my name. I have one quick question regarding your opinion when it comes to newly formed teams. Do you see the need for a higher percentage in office meetings and versus a newly formed team that is fully remote? Thank you.
So for this question, I think there's one main point that addresses remote workers and in-person workers, building trust, right? So when you're face-to-face, when you are interacting, you get to know each other. I can see how well you shake hand. It's a soft shake hand, a hard shake hand. Your voice, I get to see you as a person. But when you are remotely, I get to see your mind, right? So what we try to do, build trust. Share some common values, what is important for me, what's important for you. Share what your expectations are in terms of collaborating with the team. Share some personal things, right? We are not at lunch together discussing, hey, I had a problem with my car, or my dog, I don't know, bit me today, or I'm a ninja diaper changer, right? But you can still maybe share some personal aspects. In my formal presentations, my kid always comes up to me, and he's part of my company. Some engineers like that, some don't like that. What I can tell you is that it makes the finance discussions more pleasantly. When you have a kid around you, that kind of de-escalates or detensionates the situation. So building trust is something that we can do always, indifferent if it's a new team, a long-running team, and also setting up expectations. What do you expect from your team now and in the near future? Cool.
Okay, we have two more questions. It's definitely a pressing topic for everybody, so if you can just let us know for how long can we take questions?
Actually, you can tell me when I need to get off the stage. Okay. I have time.
Okay,
cool.
We still have.
Okay, my name is Zoli.
Hi.
Hi. I talked about it would make sense that the employee have a productivity mindset, or to be trained to have a productivity mindset, because for an employee without a productivity mindset, like a manager or a high achiever people, like I don't know, maybe a champion, they don't have the same picture about their life. For an employee, it's maybe well search by working at home to work less. And because he's not in the office, also he can achieve this goal easier. This could be real, this thought that I have, or if you understood what
I think I kind of understood the question. So basically, you're talking about engineers that at the office are being productive and at home are being less productive.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, you need to understand that there are different generations amongst us, right? We are millennials, Gen Z, boomers, snowflakes, and so on. You need to have conversations one-to-one with the engineer. What type of work motivates you? What seniority level do you have? If you're a junior, it's obviously a challenging thing to get productive at home. right? A junior is also inspired by leaders around him. If he sees a leader not staying on Facebook or on Instagram 6-7 hours a day, he's going to follow, right? But at home, he has, I don't know, MTV, the phone is screaming, so it's challenging. Have conversations and take them by the hand and lead them to the productivity mindset. They don't have to be productive right away, but they need to understand that some work ethics, some time scheduling, blocking calendar solutions can work. So have conversations with each and every one of your colleagues. Also look at the DISC personality. What type of personality? Is he an introvert, extrovert? And try to understand how to change the productivity aspect. I don't know if I fully answered your question, but these are kind of some points I would use. We can definitely talk at the booth if you have any further questions.
Okay, and we had one more question somewhere there.
One more question somewhere there.
Right there in the middle.
Thank you, Alex. Great presentation.
Hey.
I'm Bogdan.
Thank you.
I'm curious to see your opinion, because I think that in all the companies there are persons that are not willing to turn on their cameras while working at home. How do you encourage these persons to have a visual interaction with them?
Well, first of all, we try to understand why. When we are discussing change management, right, we need to understand that there are a lot of biases going around. For me, it's really okay to share my webcam. I'm a really extrovert type of personality, but not everyone is like me. So first, try to understand the main issue. It could be something that you will never think of, like, hey, I live in a small apartment, I'm ashamed of, I don't know, the background. I didn't have time to, I don't know, prepare the room. It's not looking pretty, and I feel uncomfortable, right? I don't want to put pressure on that kind of colleague in that situation to put his video on. I try to lead by example. I have some days when I don't show my camera on, and I say, guys, I have a really bad day. I have, I don't know, crazy hair. Please don't be mad at me, right? So we should try to encourage the colleagues to put the camera on, but we should also try to find creative solutions. If he's from a remote location where we can go, right, in Romania, okay, let's have a business trip or have a road trip to get together with that colleague, right, to get a sense of his personality. If you are having a tough conversation, just ask, hey, Bogdan, I know we're going to discuss this tough conversation. I would highly appreciate it if you could turn on the video cam, if you're comfortable. I need to feel the energy, right? I can't just look at Bogdan, the name, right, and on a blank screen. I don't know how to interact with that. If it's okay with you, totally fine. If you're not okay, it's okay. So try to be empathic in this approach, and obviously it's not a silver bullet, right? It's complicated when we're dealing with humans.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool.
Okay. And we have here in the corner one more question.
I see a red blinking thing that is telling me it's
we're
okay?
still okay. We started a bit earlier, so we still have some time.
Awesome.
What do you think is going to be the impact of working remotely regarding the fact that now developers and even accountants can work from home, and probably in the future there will be a lot of more jobs which will, where people will be able to work remotely. What's going to be the impact on the world, on the relationships, on the companies?
Well, one thing, I think we are all going to be a lot happier, right? If you're going to be working remotely, that means you have time for your healthcare, for your well-being, for your family, and you should be, or hopefully we should be more happier, right? Because you're in control of your time, how you work. In terms of the workplace, it will need to adapt and reinvent itself, right? We are already in a really competitive market. We will need to have managers learn new ways of working. I'm not 100% prepared to engage with the hundreds of engineers in my community. I need to always learn and specialize, and it's going to be a challenge. We also need to share, right? So these 5 lessons I'm not keeping for myself. I'm not selfish. I'm giving them out. Obviously, it's not rocket science. Throughout the history of time, the single constant is that everything is changing. So I don't see it as a major pain point. I see it as a turning point. If we adapt, if we understand that we don't have to force colleagues to come to work, it's going to be okay, in my point of view.
But what about the stress level? Because we tend to work overtime when we work from home.
Well, that needs to be addressed. What we try to do at Cognizant Softvision, if I see colleagues that are, let's say, online at 6:30, 7:30, I try to ask them, hey, I just want to make sure that you didn't forget your laptop on. Are you okay? Are you just ramping down the day? I try to limit my communication in off hours. I have to go full disclosure. I have a 11 p.m. to midnight focus time when I get creative and find new ideas. If I try to send an email, I try to use a schedule option to send the email in the morning so that I can give the correct example and not try to put more pressure on overtime, right? So we need to lead by example. It's a real situation, a real problem. What we are trying to do in our company is have webinars, trainings. We had different parenting trainings in the last couple of months. We don't know how to work with our kids and also work at our full job at home. So it's going to be an adaptation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have one more question. Actually, apparently you have 2 more questions.
Hi, thank you for the talk.
You're welcome.
What percentage of companies do you think cannot go back to the pre-pandemic work schedule?
What percentage of companies cannot go back?
Yeah, to the pre-pandemic work schedule, like ever.
So I think creative industries, IT industries, they shouldn't go back to the way things were, right? So working from the office. But if you are in a manufacturing industry, right, you need to be there. If you are in the embedded industry, right, you need to create hardware, devices. You will need to find out solutions of, I don't know, shipping devices to a remote location, and also making sure it's a cultural, fair approach to hybrid working, right? I definitely wouldn't want to be in a company where, because of my job role, I always have to be at the office. I would appreciate it if the company would find a solution for flexibility, optionality in some days, right? Even before the pandemic, there are days where we didn't write code, we just have meetings, right? So I think even in the manufacturing business, we can adapt a bit. But the companies primarily that I think they shouldn't go back the way things are creative industries, IT industry, basically, everything that involves sitting for long hours in front of widescreen and using your brain and your input devices to create cool things.
Thank you.
And we'll have one more question because I think otherwise you'll not be finishing today.
Okay. You really had some questions, so I'm glad.
Hi, Alex. Good talk.
Thank you.
After 1 or 2 years of pandemics, I personally started to feel that I'm losing belonging to the company that I've worked to. And the question would be, did you encounter the same problem with your employees?
Of course.
And how did you mitigate that?
Well, so how we go about doing things, and also for this year, we gave flexibility and optionality to the engineers. If you want to come to the office, you can do it. We obviously remodeled our office. It's not so much as a working environment, but as a place where you can have social interaction, generate moments, create emotion. And also, we try to be clever about the types of events that we host at the office. Last night, I think I mentioned, we have a kids party, and we don't market it as mandatory. Hey, we're having a kids party. If you would like, if you have the time, right, please subscribe here, and enroll into this application so that we know that you're coming. Hey, I'm coming in a delegation in Yash studio, where we have a lot of colleagues, for instance. If you'd like to go to dinner on Monday, it will be my pleasure, right? Also, if you want to come to the office and maybe chat about, let's try to do it, right? So an empathic way of dealing with things.
And do you think that these kind of events are enough for giving the employee a sense of belonging? I mean,
no. It will also take leading by example. So team members, right? They need to influence each other. Like I was mentioning in the presentation, over 70% of engineers want to work remotely, but over 60% also want to have in-person connection. You need to identify those leaders, those opinion makers that will drive the team in a sprint retrospective at the office. And maybe we'll see at the end of the year how the work week will look like, right? What we tried to do was not to enforce any rules now, because it's impossible. You can't say, okay, you need to come to the office 2 days a week and 3 days at home. We need to let the engineers decide their own work schedule. And I think we should wrap it up. If you have any more questions, I'll gladly at the Cognizant Softvision booth.
Yeah, you'll meet Alexandru at the Cognizant Softvision booth. One short question. What about events like DevTalks? I mean, in this context in which
well, I think this event adapted perfectly to the situation. I love it that the other day we had Alin Turcu for the mobile stage. He's a community manager in Cognizant Softvision in Cluj, right? He didn't have to fly here for 10 minutes of talk. It's an inclusive event. I love it that we are here face to face, but I'm sure that there are a lot of engineers at home in pajamas watching this session or other session. So I think this DevTalks, and kudos to you guys for organizing it, is a perfect example of how to mix the both worlds. So really good job to you on this one.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for the time and the questions.